For those of you who are going to stay around for this last activity, I am going to be providing you some really good information, but it's going to be more of a creative brainstorming session. So I am going to work with you guys on opening up your creative minds, and you are going to need a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen for this one. As I was talking before with, when we were talking with Sarah Way, she described how Girl Scouts really set the stage for her becoming an entrepreneur. And I talked about how we are all going to, become an entrepreneur this afternoon and kind of brainstorm and learn how we can teach these skills to our girls. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. That way you guys can see it. And then we're going to go ahead and work through this. If you don't want to do the activity, that's absolutely fine. But it is good to kind of know the process and the steps that girls go through, as well as adults go through when becoming an entrepreneur and designing your own business. While we're doing that, I'm also going to be talking about my story as it ties in with becoming an entrepreneur. And then at the end, if you guys wanted to share how some of the businesses that you guys came up with during our time together, you can do that as well. So can I go ahead and get a thumbs up? Can you guys see my screen? Wonderful. I see some heads nodding in that. Perfect. So one of the things that I love to think about is Girl Scouts and the Girl Scout Cookie Program is the premier leadership organization and the biggest girl-led entrepreneur program in the nation. And that one of the things that I like to think about, though, is the Girl Scout Cookie Program is a wonderful financial literacy and business building program. However, as the girls get older and they become an adult Girl Scout, they're not able to sell Girl Scout cookies anymore. So we need to be able to give them the framework so that way they feel comfortable taking the skills that they've learned, just like Sarah did, and becoming their own boss and their own entrepreneur with their own business. But how do you do that? I've been in Girl Scouts for 34 years. I've been a staff member for 20, and I was a Daisy all the way up through, it was a senior at the time. I am, as I said, I've been a staff member for 24 years. So I was taught so many of the wonderful business skills, people skills, money management, business ethics, decision-making, goal setting. But what I was never taught was how to turn my passion for creativity and, problem solving and that into a business, and how to actually come up with my own business. I remember when I was a little girl, I would take rubbing alcohol and water and flowers, and I would, try to squish the flowers and get the pollen out of it to be able to make my own perfumes. I remember making different crafts and wanting to sell them out, but I didn't know what that was. I didn't know that was an entrepreneur because nobody ever taught me that. I was never given the building blocks to have my own business. My position right now is the Entrepreneur Experience Manager, but prior to joining product sales, I was in charge of our entrepreneur programming and Boss Girls. And when I was asked to take over the entrepreneur programming, I had no idea what an entrepreneur actually did, and that I all along had been being an entrepreneur. Nobody had just ever taught me that's what it was called. So what I'm here to talk to you guys about today is that we are here teaching our girls how to be budding entrepreneurs, how to be cookiepreneurs, their own bosses during the Girl Scout Cookie Program, but that it's not too late to become an entrepreneur yourself. Or if you choose, maybe you're already an entrepreneur and you have your own business, or you love what you do and you don't quite want to go off on your own and have a business, even if it's on the side, it's okay. These skills are just good skills to know, and knowing how to have an entrepreneurial mindset, which we'll talk about, So that way you guys can teach these skills to the girls as well. Or in my case, I have two boys. I have a 10 and a 13-year-old, and a lot of the skills that I've been learning, I'm teaching to them so they know what an entrepreneur is and that they can do it if they believe that they can. That anything they want to do, they can put their mind to it. Now, how many of you guys have ever wanted to start your own business? Just think about that. Have you ever had an idea that's come into your head where you're like, you know what, I could sell that, or people would want to hear about that? Or, you know, you've made your own jewelry, or you've baked something and someone goes, oh my God, I need the recipe, or can I buy that from you? That's being an entrepreneur and starting to think creatively. But one of the things that I always thought was I had to be in business school or I had to be young to start my own business to become an entrepreneur. You can become an entrepreneur at any point in time. Does not matter your age. We have girls, part of Girl Scouts, that are starting their own business. We have a young lady who's developing bracelets and jewelry, and she's in first grade. She started this when she was in kindergarten. But I'll tell you, I didn't start my own business or thinking about starting my own business until I was 36, almost 37 years old. And I'll tell you a little bit about my journey while we're talking. So it's never too late. Anybody can start a business at any point in time. So taking a look at this, Zuckerberg with Facebook, he was 19. Jobs, who started Apple, was 21. Hastings, who started Netflix, was 36 when he started Netflix. Ford, who developed Ford, was 40. Walton, who developed Walmart, was 44. Kroc, who developed McDonald's, was 52, all the way to Sanders, who developed KFC. He was 65. I know Girl Scouts, Juliet Gordon Lowe was up there in age. You know, she was not a young girl when she came up with the idea for Girl Scouts. So we can all be an entrepreneur at any point in time. So when I keep saying entrepreneur, we can be an entrepreneur, you can be a cookiepreneur, you can be your own boss. What is an entrepreneur? That's the building block that all of our girls and us need to understand. So that way in your mind, you might be able to go, you know what? I've already been an entrepreneur. I've already done this. Or, oh, I could easily become an entrepreneur. We want to give these skill sets to our girls, but this is going to be a fun, creative session for you. We're going to work through some business development, and you guys are going to come up with just a creative idea that you could turn into a business. Does not mean that you need to do it, but we're just going to have some fun in this session and design a business. Now, an entrepreneur is someone who identifies a need and starts a business to fill that need. It's a lot of what the girls do with the take action projects. They've researched something, they have found a need, and then they take action to solve that need. An entrepreneur spots an opportunity and develops a vision for a new product, business, or solution. And then they pull together all of the resources needed and takes on the risk to bring innovation to market or create value for a customer based on the need. So there is a need that you see, and then you solve the problem, and your solution is your business. But where do you start? So that sounds pretty easy. I can solve a problem and I can, design something, but I don't even know the first place to start. Well, one of the first places to start, and this program I highly recommend to anybody, no matter the age. I'll talk a little bit more about this program later. It's called Boss Girls. On our website, we have a curriculum that is absolutely free. It is virtual, and it's 11 lesson plans that will take you from what an entrepreneur is and what do they do, all the way to conducting market research, learning about social change for social good, determining your startup costs, financing your business, to lesson plan 11, which is getting ready to sell and marketing your business. One thing that I can say, and I'm going to share a little bit about the journey that I've had. Like I said, prior to me starting the entrepreneur journey with Girl Scouts and developing the Boss Girls curriculum, I didn't know that I could be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what it meant when I was talking about market research or what social change for social good was. So I learned a lot when I was going through the development of this curriculum, and I had a lot of aha moments. And I'm almost 40. So when you're taking a look at this, it's one of those things of these lesson plans are available for anybody. It doesn't just have to be our girls that go through this. So if after today, this is something that, has kind of sparked interest in you even a little bit, or you just want to have some fun and see what the girls are doing, I highly recommend you going through the Boss Girl lesson plans yourself and being able to come up with your own vision. Now, what do entrepreneurs sell? We all know about products and services and things like that. Well, those people are entrepreneurs. They've seen a need and they come up with either a product, which is a tangible item that you can see and touch that is developed to sell, cars, books, bath products, things like that, or a service that it is an intangible item that you cannot see that is developed to sell. It usually involves the sale of someone's time or talent. Event planning, graphic design, babysitting, hairstyling. When we were hearing about Sarah before, Sarah has a product that she sells. She has the dog biscuits and dog products that she sells, but she also has a service. When I was talking to her about speaking here, she said she's going to school for graphic design and media and that, and she has done some projects for people where she's utilized her creative services to help them design their business logos or business portfolios with graphic design and that. So she has both a product and a service. This young lady here, her name is KK Gregory. She is actually a Girl Scout who saw a need in her Girl Scout troop and fulfilled that need. Now, what this was is KK Gregory developed what's called Wristies. When her Girl Scout troop was out selling Girl Scout cookies and then playing in the snow and things like that, she saw how challenging it was for her Girl Scout troop friends to be able to count out money in that and keep their wrists and their hands warm in the winter. So she developed what's called Wristies. You can see that she's wearing them right now. And what they are is felt or fabric coverings that go from your elbow down around your thumb to the area of the knuckles of your hands. That way, your wrists stayed warm and everything like that. If you had to take your gloves off and count out money, or when the kids were sledding and things like that, a lot of times the gloves don't meet up with where the coat ends. So these Wristies allowed her friends to be able to keep their wrists and their hands warm when they had to take off their gloves. This simple idea has turned into a multi-million-dollar business. That is KK Gregory in the picture on the right, where she is actually working her business. She helps design the Wristies, picks the colors and everything like that. And now she is her own boss with a mega million-dollar company selling these Wristies. Now, we're going to go through the process of thinking like an entrepreneur today. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn what it takes to be an entrepreneur. We're going to go through what's called the entrepreneurial mindset. It says the future belongs to those who can think like an entrepreneur. But what does that mean? What does it mean to think like an entrepreneur? So thinking like an entrepreneur is a mindset. It's not necessarily steps, but it's how you frame your mind when you're being creative. So setting clear goals, knowing exactly what you want to do, knowing exactly what you want to accomplish. Having a growth mindset and not a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is, I can't do this. I've never done it before. A growth mindset is, oh, let's be creative. Let me turn on those creative juices and let's see what fun ideas I can come up with, because although it may not be a multi-million-dollar company, I'm still going to have fun with this. So you're not selling yourself short and turning off that creativity. You're allowing your mind to be open. Practice being decisive. One of the things that has an entrepreneurial mindset is knowing that it's okay to come up with a lot of different ideas, but finalizing it to one that you want to work through more is great for having that entrepreneur mindset. The next thing is redefine failure. I don't like the word fail, especially when I talk to my children where they're trying something and they'll go, but mom, I failed. I said, fail is just the first attempt in learning. You need to be able to say, okay, well, that didn't work quite well. What do we need to do next? How do we need to change this? So you're just pivoting and turning failure into first attempt in learning. Also, facing your fears. Part of Girl Scouts is being go-getters, innovators, risk takers, and leaders. And one of the things that always stopped me was, what if nobody buys it? What if nobody understands it? And what if I don't succeed? And it was a summer of realization a couple summers ago that said, you know what? There's nobody stopping me but myself. What will happen if I progress with my business idea? What could happen, a year, 2, 5, 10 years from now, if I do this? I didn't want to think about what would happen if I did it, but what could happen if I did? And being able to open your mind and have the ability to just say, you know what? I'm going to try it. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to pivot and we'll do something else. It's also good to remain curious. One of the things that I know Sarah talked about and things like that is she was always improving, always modifying, trying new things. She didn't stick with the first dog food or dog treat recipe she tried. She's tried lots of different things. I'm sure she didn't, make the first dog biscuit and go, that's it, I've perfected it. She's remained curious. She's allowed herself to think more and then be flexible and ready for growth. That's not just with a growth mindset, but also knowing that your business could change and mold and grow as you think more and spend more time on it. Now, I'm going to ask you guys this question, and I want you to think about it for maybe 30 seconds or so and go, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Money is not an option. Time's not an option. You don't have to worry about any of that. The sky is not your limit. You are. So what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Go ahead. I'd like you guys to just type something in the chat log and tell me, what would you do if you knew you would not fail? Don't worry about time. Don't worry about talent. Don't worry about money. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Perfect. Sally, has anything been typed in the chat log?
Yes, we do have a couple of great things. Carrie would make a cure for coronavirus, diabetes, all kinds of it, and cancer. Alana or Elena would do home remodeling and interior designing. Ricky would travel in an RV around the US.
Those are great. Those are great. And that's what I really, really like, is just being able to open up your mind and just say, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
And Charlene would help kids that need extra help to succeed in school.
I love it. I love it. Well, one of the things when I talk to people about becoming an entrepreneur and opening your own business is to think about your passions, your hobbies, or your interests. I'll tell you, I used to be passionate about scrapbooking. I loved it. I would spend every waking minute that I could scrapbooking. So there was one time where I thought I could turn a business of my love for scrapbooking into a business, and I was going to call it Lifelong Memories, turning everyday moments into lifelong memories. So that was something I was passionate about that I thought I could turn into a business. So go ahead and write down on your paper or go ahead and put in the chat log, what is a passion, a hobby, or an interest you would love to share with somebody else?
Reading. Prior to this one, we also had Go Ziplining from Julie.
Ooh.
Charlene says reading. See if anybody else chimes in.
Now, the slide deck will be
Design.
available afterwards.
Cry cut designs.
Oh, Cricut designs, cry cuts. Awesome. Okay. Teaching or doing?
I'm thinking she's both, she says.
All right. All right. So this is one of the first steps, is just opening your mind up to what could happen. What could you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And knowing what your passions, your hobbies, or your interests are. That's the first thing about developing your own business or becoming an entrepreneur, is knowing what your passions, your hobbies, and your interests are, and allowing yourself to progress into it, even if you know it may not work out. So what problems have you guys solved so far? So as we learned about KK Gregory, she saw her Girl Scouts and her Girl Scout troop getting cold wrists during the Girl Scout cookie season, you know, not being able to necessarily wear gloves when she was counting out money, or when they were sledding in that, the snow was getting into their coats. So she wanted to solve a problem and create a business that could solve that problem. So think about problems that you guys have solved before that you could potentially turn into a business. One of the ones that I tell people, and I've never developed this, I always think that I should have because I could probably have made a lot of money, but I'm the mother of two. And I know we all have children pretty much, young or old. And what is the thing that children love to do with toys in the back of a car when they get done playing with them? They like to throw them or drop them. Well, one day we were driving down the freeway and a projectile came from the back of my car to the front and it hit the steering wheel. My son had gotten done with his sippy cup, and so he launched it to the front of the car. Well, as having an entrepreneurial mindset, but not quite knowing that I was an entrepreneur at the time, I thought, you know what we need to do? I need to put a bungee cord on all of his toys so I don't have to reach back there. He can pull them up and they can only extend so far and not hit me while I'm driving like 50 miles down, 50 miles per hour down the street, down the highway and that. So what is a problem that you've solved that maybe you could turn into a business? So think about that. So you could do a graph like this if you want to. So problem you encountered and how did you solve it? And then if you'd like to share, go ahead and type in the chat log a problem that you have encountered and a creative way that you solved it.
So we don't have anybody that mentioned anything yet, but I can tell you two things that we did. Just like the young lady made, KK did, my husband cut off some socks, long socks, and cut a hole for a thumb and made those for my kids when they were sledding and that kind of stuff when they were younger, to use to go over their hand to connect so that the mittens and the end of the jacket would not come up. But one that was this summer was my daughter's cousin, so my niece, unfortunately has diabetes. So she wears one of those things on her arm to track her sugar levels and whatever. And they would go swimming and it started to peel off. So they cut off an old pair of socks and they used the elastic part at the top and put it as an armband over her little device. And so it kept it from falling off. So then Rachel wore one in solidarity. So they both had armbands on. So that was kind of fun.
Cool. That is great. Well, like I said, this is, feel free to share if you'd like to. Otherwise, just think about it.
So Charlene mentioned that she became a cookie cupboard so that she didn't have to travel to La Crosse every time she needed cookies. And the volunteers in her area love her for it. Thank you.
Wonderful. That is great problem solving and being able to step in.
So we have a couple other people that shared, but I know we're right at just a couple minutes over 3, Courtney. So
not a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of progress through the rest of them. I know we got about a 10-minute delay. I'm going to go ahead and go through these kind of quickly. So one of the things, as I progress through, you'll see some of these stories. I have 2 children that both have mental health disorders. And I've always wondered how we can help work with the kids that are developing differently or have special little ways about them and that. So you'll see that I've created a business around it, but I saw a need in my community. My youngest got lost one time in the woods, and a first responder who helped me told me that they did not know how to find a child like mine. And I didn't know what that meant. And it took me a while to understand that how I respond and work with my youngest son is very different than how I work with and respond to my older son. And that people needed to understand why my youngest son was the way that he was. So I saw a need and came up with a solution. Now, the next thing about knowing is, who is your audience? Who are you selling your service or your product to? Be specific in who your niche market is. So as I was talking about having a son with mental health disorders and that, I knew I wanted to help people understand mental health disorders in children. I wanted to work with the families. I wanted to work with the kids themselves, and I wanted to work with the first responders. So I knew my niche market for my business was first responders and families that have children with very different mental health disorders, ADHD, autism, depression, anxiety, any of that. So I found who my audience was. So when you're working through yours and knowing what is going on, or you're teaching the girls, part of the lesson plan talks about who's your audience. Who are you selling your product to? The next part to think about is, will your company have a social change for social good component? Is your organization going to give back to a community organization or a community need? It took me a very, very long time to understand that. And what it means is, if you have a business and you're making profit, do you give at least 50% of your profit back to the community? So that way you're able to say that you are changing the community or changing the world around you because of your organization. So one of the things that I worked through was I developed what's called Keep Calm sensory kits for first responders. And I donate half of my proceeds to be able to further support trainings and resources and putting kits together for outside organizations. So a social good creates a social change. So that's what that looks like, is having an organization or coming up with something that you can give back, usually about 50% of your profit, your time, talent, or expertise, to an outside organization to help change a social need. What is your business name? What's your business name and your mission? What is your branding? A lot of the times when the Girl Scout cookies are being designed, just like with the Toasties, they did a lot of market research and looking at what a business name could be, or in this case, what the Girl Scout cookie name could be. They talked to a lot of people, they tested it out, people voted in that, and they were able to narrow it down to one. So coming up with your business name. The next part to look at is, what will it take to start your business? What are your startup costs going to be? And what supplies are you going to need? Thinking about, do you want to find an investor? Is there a family member who will lend you money to start thinking through the business idea that you have? Do you self-fund it? Do you find an angel investor? Do you take out a bank loan? So what are your startup costs? What supplies are you going to need? And what will it take to start your business? And then it comes up with creating your business plan. Who, what, where, when, how, and how do you know you will be successful? So coming up with all of that, we talk to our girls about creating their plan of action, in a sense, when it comes to Girl Scout cookies. Their goal setting, their decision making. Where are we going to go for booths? How many are we going to sell? Who are we going to sell to? Where are we going to find our customers? How are we going to market to our customers? That's the same thing when you're thinking about creating a business plan for a business. The who, what, when, where, why, and how. And then finally, financing your business. How will you run your business and get the supplies that you need? Are you going to, again, be self-funded? One of the things that I take a look at is I've gotten, donations in from people to be able to buy some of the supplies to create the kits. I get the kits, I get the money for the kits, I send out the kits, and I use that money in turn to buy more supplies. So I've invested a little bit, but then I'm putting that money back into the company to be able to invest more and have more kits go out. Now, this is my youngest son, and he's gone through the process of the Boss Girls or Boss Kids program in this perspective for him. And he's created his own business called the Keep Calm Toolkits, an offshoot of the sensory kits for our first responders. So I worked through this process of becoming an entrepreneur and going through the curriculum in that in order to be able to come up with the invisible child, and in turn work with my son, who's only 9, who now has his own business. He's gone out to lots of different vendor fairs and sold at vendor fairs, and he's had to learn what money to put back into the company, how to pay for his supplies or his vendor fees, how to pay his staff, which happens to be his 13-year-old brother, who's the finance and tech guy, how to then invest back into the company, and how to pay himself with a part of the profit. So going through these steps can be done by anybody, anyone from my 9-year-old son who does have special needs, all the way up to, myself learning these skills. And then being able to have the program and the kits go out. So finally, running your business. We finally just launched the Keep Calm sensory kits to first responders, and Sun Prairie actually was the first community to get 2 of the kits. So we've progressed through these steps, and everything has changed along the way. It started with just a need to educate people about mental health disorders, all the way to, doing trainings, to now having the resources and getting the kits out to the law enforcement and things like that. So I worked through these steps, and I know you guys can work through these steps as well. But these steps can also help our girls out. Again, we have some amazing entrepreneurs right now that are Girl Scouts, and we know that if we give them the skills, they too can become their own entrepreneur and design their own business. Just like Sarah Way did, and just like the Daisy Girl Scout who developed her own jewelry line is selling it on Etsy, and in his turn giving money back to Girl Scouts to provide financial assistance for more girls to join. So how do we get them educated about becoming an entrepreneur? Well, there's new Girl Scout entrepreneur badges that are out, everything from daisies all the way up through ambassadors. They're progressive badges from toy design, budding entrepreneur, business jumpstart, entrepreneur business startup, to entrepreneur accelerator for our ambassadors. So we do have the startup badges. There is also the Boss Girls virtual program that the girls can work with, but then, and these can be for anybody from brownies all the way up. But then we have some amazing resources for anybody who has the champion. If you look at page 14 and 15, we have some amazing programs coming up called Boss Girls Money Makers. We have January Tinker Space coming up, where the girls are going to subscribe to the Entrepreneurial Tinker Space to access weekly live programming. We're going to have Girl Fridays where they're blazing business trails. And then we also have a lot of our like highest award workshops and things like that. So if this is something that you want to be able to do, I highly recommend going through the Boss Girls curriculum yourself. If not, at least looking at it from the perspective of how can we turn around and teach the entrepreneurial mindset and how to become an entrepreneur to our girls and have them participate in a lot of these programs on top of our leading entrepreneur and financial literacy program, which is the Girl Scout Cookie Program. But other than that, thank you for joining us. I do know that we're going to do a quick recap and things like that. But does anybody have any questions right now about becoming an entrepreneur or the entrepreneurial mindset?
When does Boss Girls start?
So Boss Girls is a virtual program. The girls can start it at any point in time. If you go to our Girl Scouts website and you go to activities under council patches, you'll access all of the Boss Girls curriculum there. They can do it at any point in time. There is no definite start or stop to the program. The program was developed a couple years ago, finalized this past year, and girls can work through it at any point in time. And just so you know, the Boss Girls program goes hand in hand with the new entrepreneur badges that are out. GSUSA had me involved in the task force of developing a lot of the badge components and things like that. And a lot of the components from Boss Girls is in the new curriculum for the entrepreneur badges. So they tie together very, very nicely. If the girls are interested in doing the badges, they can progress through the Boss Girls curriculum at the same time.